Some of the news we have to cover, though, is not really all that good to be back with. We'll begin with, I guess, some happy news. Robert Sarver has begun the process of looking for someone to purchase the Phoenix Suns. This felt like it was probably always the end game, even though uh, like Adam Silver had come out and said probably nothing that was inaccurate when he's saying that NBA owners have certain rights over just employees, but was not a great look for the league. But even just handing out the 1-year suspension and the fine, I do think that there was at least an element of the league or a subset of the league, maybe not with the owners, but all the employees of the league, obviously Adam Silver himself, thinking that maybe Sarver would cave to public pressure. And I know a lot of people said to us that they're actually surprised he did. I just felt like with the outrage, and it's hard to kind of step aside from the Twitter bubble that we all live in. It really kind of felt like this was always going to head to that point, or that maybe at the very least it wouldn't be swept under the rug or forgotten about like so many other controversies in the NBA are. I did chuckle in sort of a morbid way when I read the statement that Sarver had released. This is the part that stands out, and I'm not just pull quoting here. But Sarver said, as a man of faith, I believe in atonement and the path to forgiveness. I expected that the commissioner's 1-year suspension would provide the time for me to focus, make amends, and remove my personal controversy from the teams that I and so many fans love. But in our current unforgiving climate, it has become painfully clear that that is no longer possible, that whatever good I have done or could still do is outweighed by things I have said in the past. For those reasons, I'm beginning the process of seeking the buyers for the Suns and Mercury. I would just like to say, on behalf of anyone who is a decent human being, fuck you, Robert Sarver. This is him complaining, him playing the victim, him crying cancel culture without mentioning cancel culture. And I've seen like not necessarily counter arguments to this, but the whole thing is cancel culture is it's just so accountability is not getting canceled. And this is, if you want to talk about having the right to atone, to make amends, it's a lot harder to believe someone leaning on that crutch, insofar as they even should be in this situation. But when you look at Sarver, this was a pattern of behavior. It was repeated behavior, repeated offenses. And some of the claims, some of the allegations are as recent as 2021 based on the reporting that's out there. So this is something that has spanned from 2004 to 2021 that has been cyclical. It's been consistent. He is just someone who seems like a really crappy person, and it's not someone who learned his lesson. There were reports that he pushed back against the league's punishment in the first place, which was a year suspension and $10 million fine. That's not a harbinger of someone who has changed, who is actually looking to atone, who actually feels remorseful for the things that he said, for the things that he did. Shout out once again to the people that came forward, who suffered through all this over the years, who broke non-disclosure agreements at the time. I know a lot of them were thrown out the window once the law firm got involved, but it just takes a great deal of courage, a great deal of gall, of backbone to come forward and talk about what was clearly for many people just extremely painful experiences, parts of their lives. And Robert Sarver is once again just diminishing all of this and trying to play the victim here. And it's grotesque. It's just grotesque. And there's no other word for it. I would encourage people to listen to the Timeline podcast latest episode where they went into more detail about who might be among the candidates to buy the team. But I just think, look, this is good news just to get him, Sarver, away from the league. What is interesting is he owns 35% of the team, and Baxter Holmes had tweeted that he does have the right as that sort of majority stakeholder to sell the entire team if he wants to. And it'll be fascinating to see how that plays out in the sense that, will he look to sell the entire team? I think he might, just because theoretically it should probably drum up the total cost of the Suns, which then drums up the total money that Sarver himself is getting. And so if you're a ultra rich billionaire or even part of a larger purchasing group, I think you would be willing to pay more upfront for the entire team or an actual majority of the team rather than just that minority share, but also like being the majority stakeholder in general. On ESPN, numbers were floated around at as high as 3 or 4 billion. I would probably Forbes valued the Suns at 1.8 billion, and I think some of the numbers that feel more accurate or realistic would be if the entire team is sold, they can expect to fetch probably between 2 and 2.5 billion. If it was more, I'd be fairly surprised, but not entirely shocked, just given how much NBA franchise values have skyrocketed. But get this guy all the way away from this league. And he's not the only just culpable party here. We need to see like if there's still going to be people at the top who helped enable this behavior, if not partook in it, that they will eventually be held responsible. And this is also just we've seen things happen with the Mavericks in the past. We know what happened with Sterling and the Clippers. Like there is a toxic culture throughout the NBA when you're looking at the ownership ranks, as there tends to be when you're dealing with billionaires, or in Sarver's case, like 100 millionaires. And like just when you get to that scale of wealth and how you got there, and there are stories floating around the league. So this is not just, oh, the NBA is really getting rid of all the immoral owners. There's so many other discussions to have. But after what came to light and what's already been known before this investigation even unfolded in full, it's good that he's leaving. And I don't want to hear anyone whining that cancel culture is unfair and you believe in redemption. That's great that you believe in redemption. Robert Sarver has not shown that he deserves the opportunity to redeem himself or that he has any interest in doing so. This was not just him doing or saying something 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, even a dozen times. These are just like dozens of like fucked up interactions that he had, instances of abuse, verbal and physical, with people who were employees that he was his subordinates, like however you want to frame it. And it was just so, I said this when I did record on vacation as an intro, like this just crossed so many of the, immoral, like bingo boxes off the list, because he was dealing with issues of race and misogyny, and there were physical altercations and verbal abuse and like sexual harassment. Just disgusting. And so get this guy all the way from the league. Don't allow him to play the victim. This is big. I'm happy for Suns fans. I'm happy that this should make it at least a little bit easier for Suns players to have to deal with. Chris Paul, we saw, came out and said something. The onus was always going to fall on them to answer for this, which is unfair. But Robert Sarver, can't wait for him to sell the team. And it's not a punishment. It's not a punishment. He paid, I think, $400 million for his 35% stake of the Suns. Let's say he sells the entire team. Or let's say the Suns are valued at like $2.3 billion. Let's just use that conservatively. Looking at someone who's going to get over $800 million, double up on his investment, his punishment is that he just got to, double his investment and make almost $1 billion off this. So they do sell for like between 3 or 4. Holy shit. So he is hopefully on the way out. I'm sure there's more to come from this, but shout out to Baxter Holmes as well for the reporting he did on this situation from the beginning, and as well just all the people that came forward, risked jobs, or just had to reopen these wounds that were probably never fully healed or closed, but to have to relive a really tumultuous turmoil. And I'm just endlessly impressed and thankful, frankly, but endlessly grateful, however you want to frame it, for everyone who had come forward. And just, again, it just shows a level of courage that we should all be able to appreciate. So again, let's just close with fuck you, Sarver.